I attribute the fact that I work in this field and teach in this field to a moment, which was when I walked into a class that Jonathan was teaching for the first time.
He's a masterful and arresting teacher, charismatic in the classroom.
Actually, the first time I met Jonathan was he came to the University of Pittsburgh Law School, and I saw the lecture that he gave there, and that's why I wanted to apply to work at the Berkman Center, because I saw that version of that lecture.
Even in something as conventional as a law school torts class, he reinvents what it is to teach.
What I like about teaching is that you never quite know where the conversation is going to go, and the only guiding principle is we all want to learn something.
Professor Zittrain's torts class was unique in that he combined theory with practice.
I think he's the sense I guess is collaborative.
He is the consummate teacher in terms of his attention to students. So I worked with him very closely on a conference when I was a student. I worked with him on a class, and he advised my third year paper, which became my first law journal paper. So he is a very devoted teacher one-on-one with students, as well as in the kind of 80-person environment that we often find ourselves.
He takes what students say very seriously.
He's very good at letting you have the freedom to work in the space that you want to work in, and then encouraging you to do the thing that you are best at, which he's sometimes better at picking out than you are.
During the 1L class, I didn't feel like he was ever trying to sort of force information on us.
He actually opens up and has an intellectual dialogue with the students.
It always seemed like he was more interested in having conversations about where the doctrine was unclear and what the doctrine should be. And I thought that was just so much more interesting than having somebody describe the law that I had read the previous night in a casebook.
I think as a teacher, it can be tempting sometimes to just cover what you know, because you don't want to give any misinformation, you don't want it to be jumbled or vague. But I think often an audience can also find useful sharing what you don't know and being able to talk about what puzzles you and why something confuses you. And I think bringing the audience along respects them in a way and asks for more from them in a way, because then they find themselves saying, well, how would I solve that problem? And it's particularly true if the puzzles and problems can have an ethical or normative dimension.
So the date is October 23rd, 2011. The United States Congress has just put forth a new bill, as they say in Academy Awards land, for your consideration, to deal with the problem of online piracy, particularly from overseas sites. And today we're going to try to figure out what the hell this thing says. Your mission had been to tell us something about it that we should care about, what jumps out as, this could be interesting, and to the stuff that's interesting, to what extent is it unprecedented? So let's start figuring out where we stand.
Jonathan and I have collaborated on many fronts. We've written books together, as well as run research projects together, and have taught a bunch of things together in a variety of ways, almost all experimental one way or another. And this is right at the top of the list of the experiments in terms of the edginess of it. And in the class, this advanced problem-solving workshop, we are having students tackle real-world problems that they would have to go out and solve as lawyers or as people in business or as people in engineering a few months from now.
Instead of learning mere cases and doctrine, we're actually put in the scenario of CEOs, CTOs, or just clients generally. And instead of asking whether intellectual property law allows this or that, we're actually put in real-world scenarios where we have to decide, does this quarter's budget allow for this sort of lawsuit to go forward? Should we even use the law at all? Does the law even matter? Is there a better tool out there? Maybe just negotiating and making a phone call would work better. So he really has moved beyond basic lessons of what counts as intellectual property onto, what do intellectual property lawyers actually do? How do companies actually function on the ground?
So are you agreeing? You are conceding, Group B, that under this law you are in fact dedicated to the theft of U.S. property. There's no time. Must act now.
I think this is a really hard issue for technology companies. If they hate this law,
Yes.
how much do they say it's so overreaching that it'll sweep
Yes.
in even a good company like
Yes.
Microsoft or Google, which is at least one
Yes.
version of the argument.
This is the
against.
classic parade of horribles problem. Anytime you are wanting to object to a law, either because you're challenging it in the Supreme Court or in the federal courts after it has passed, or when you're challenging it in the court of public opinion before it has passed, you can say, oh my God, it's so overbroad, it would make Google into criminals. And then once it passes, you got to be like, by the way, we are not criminals. Right. And that is a real
It's a hard problem.
issue, isn't it?
So we decided to craft a course that would be for students right before they go into the professional world of technology and seeking to practice in this field. And we realized also that we could do a bunch of cool things if we used this method. One thing was we could have students work in teams that had students from different schools working together to solve a problem related to technology. So this course is cross-listed in the Kennedy School, in the engineering school, and in the law school. So the concept is that though it's mainly lawyers solving legal problems, they're doing so on teams that involve other students from different disciplines. And this is something where Jonathan has shined.
Well, it's been really interesting for me in the past year to take up additional faculty roles outside the law school. I'm a member of the computer science department now. I teach at the Kennedy School. And it's especially helpful, I think, to be able to convene classes that have students from those different disciplines and get them talking to one another.
So is this like international shoe or something? What are they talking about? Yes? Zippo? For the FASers here, that's like, what the hell are you talking about? You see, FASers, it's all about fair play and substantial justice. If you learn nothing in your first year of law school, fair play and substantial justice.
So he just is genuinely fully interested in whatever it is he happens to be speaking to you about, whether or not it's internet regulation or Game of Thrones or Star Trek or his remote control helicopter.
Jonathan is nothing if not quirky in a great way. It's part of his absolute charm and brilliance.
He is very interested in just anything that happens to cross his desk. It's a bizarre skill that I wish I had.
He has an ability as a teacher to create a moment and a feeling and an excitement to what's going on that is amazing.
Within a classroom, I've tried out different things. I tried a real-time feedback mechanism, so students would have slider bars when they did have technology in the room. And if something became unclear, they could slide a slider towards, wait a minute, I'm confused. And if enough people were enough confused, a foghorn would sound in the room. And it was actually amazing to find how often you'd have this collective, you'd have 100 students in a room and a teacher and a lecture merrily going on. And in fact, nobody has any idea what the person at the front of the room is talking about. And not only does the person at the front not know, most others don't know that everybody else is confused too. And that is not optimal. To me, that represents you have to be willing to truly take risks. And it's funny, in a lot of entrepreneurial and business literature, they talk about risk-taking organizations. You need to be bold and innovative. But when it really comes down to it, it is scary. It's scary to deploy something and have it fail. And then say, geez, that didn't work. Well, I guess I shouldn't have done it, is usually the reaction. But I think the reaction should be, you should only not have done it if it was half-hearted, if it wasn't well thought out. But if you tried it and it didn't work, you really did learn something, and revise it and try it again.